In 1966, a man who had witnessed the many sides of humanity decided to craft a philosophy that encompassed the entirety of the human experience, with a focus on feeding the desires of the ego, of self-fulfilling prophecy, and of magical ritual. The Church of Satan was formed. If this mindset sounds familiar to you, it's probably because it sounds a lot like a combination of colors that we've covered here before on this channel. Which one? Well, that will be the topic of this video, so hold on to your ideas till the end. The beauty of the color pie is that it can be applied to many philosophies, giving us a way of framing discussions on big ideas. Using this lens, I want to apply the colors to one such philosophy, one that I find quite fascinating, and that is Satanism, specifically the Church of Satan founded by Anton Lavey. I chose Satanism for the first entry because I believe it is misunderstood and is also a perfect philosophy to assign colors to, as its messaging is very concise. So let's break down what this messaging is and decide on what colors it fits along the way. Growing up, and through his many professions on the road to founding his religion, Anton Lavey witnessed firsthand the duplicity of humanity. As a young man, he would play organ at both the local carnival and the local church. It was while doing this job that he witnessed men and women acting far outside their civilized selves, committing the same sins they would repent for the next day at their church, only to then return to their deeds that night. He wondered why people would bother asking for forgiveness for something they clearly wanted to do. People confess their sins so that they can clear their conscience and be free to go out and sin again, usually the same sin. He figured that their actions were obviously their true self, so why not accept that part of themselves instead of begging to be absolved? To him, all religions were a matter of punishing oneself for something that came naturally to humanity. What Lavey figured out in this time was that humans want to enjoy their life, to have fun, and to do things that society might frown upon, even if what society frowns upon changes over time, further showing that it is only a matter of perspective that we withhold pleasure for ourselves. So, this, in the end, became a major part of the satanic faith. To do as you desire, so long as what you desire does not impede on the freedoms of others to do as they wish. Even in the 60s, when it was still rather taboo, he would speak of sexual freedom, in that no person should be prosecuted for how they or who they want to love. Once again, so long as the receiving party is of a capacity to consent their willingness. When we talk about this freedom to be your true self and to act in a manner that facilitates your desire, we of course see that these values align rather neatly with Red Black. It's Black's view of the importance of the ego that cannot be overstated. Black says that no one is looking out for your needs, and it is up to you to get what you want from your life. In Red, it is the need for satisfaction and fulfillment, the ability to be honest with yourself and your feelings. Now, this is not selfish action for its own sake, which we can sometimes see in Red Black, but in an awareness that others deserve to live this life as well. Satanists see the world from their own lens and act in a manner that favors their own needs, but that does not mean you impede on the freedoms of others. It is the side of Red that has empathy which keeps Black in check, as, on its own, Black might take these ideals too far, which would be much closer to the Satanism of Aleister Crowley, for instance. In this way, we see the side of Red Black that isn't just a product of debauchery, but an understanding of humanity and an acceptance and enjoyment of that humanity and everything that it offers. Satanism looks to set up principles that cultivate the ego and allow the enjoyment of life without being bogged down with arbitrary restrictions meant to cow the individual, all for the sake of a gift beyond death. The Satanist is above all else a lover of life, as death is the ultimate abstinence, and so, as an abstraction of what is considered evil, it borrows its guiding principles from the 7 deadly sins, turning them from something made to cast guilt on the human and instead bring about joy and self-fulfillment. It states that greed is a good thing, as it motivates us to gain more for ourselves. From what we know of the color pie, Black couldn't agree more. Envy is merely the emotion that desires what your neighbor has, and in turn motivates you to gain such gifts for yourself. A strong and ever-prevalent emotion that red would align itself with. Gluttony is simply eating more than you need to live, and if eating brings you pleasure, why not enjoy it, so long as you don't bring yourself harm? In turn, pride would keep you in check, as it motivates us to take care of ourselves and to rejoice in our accomplishments. People will often say that pride will be your downfall, but don't have the foresight to see all great people are products of pride, greed, and envy. Next is sloth, the sin made to prod the worker along until exhaustion, which can instead be a way to reward oneself when used sparingly. Then there is lust, one of the strongest of all human desires, and this is because it is the one most necessary to our survival as a species. Red would all too willingly tell you to follow through on this desire, but more so it's rooted deep within us all, as it drives us to better ourselves in order to gain the partners we desire. And isn't love a product of lust as well? Finally, we have another primal emotion, once again a feeling we see displayed strongly in red, and that is anger. Anger has a purpose. It is there to motivate self-preservation. A lack of anger at the wrong time could allow others to walk all over you or to abuse you in some way. Anger is still a part of our DNA because it is used to ignite the soul and put into action the means to keep ourselves safe. Now, Satanism does not promote anger to those that don't deserve it. Instead, it says, the Satanist believes you should love strongly and completely those that deserve your love, but never turn your other cheek to your enemy. As you can see, with a simple change in perspective, what was once considered a sin is really the true nature of who we are. And it is only through our own guilt that we strip away these tools that have been with us since the dawn of humanity. As you can see, the 7 deadly sins reveal to us some of the colors in Satanism. We can now see that without a doubt, black and red are perfectly aligned with Satanism. But there's still one more color missing, and it's something you'll come to see when we move on to the next sections. Above all else, Satanism is a philosophy of rational and skeptical thought. It sees humanity and the world around it for what it is, and asks that you not be fooled by the words of others, and to instead trust your emotions and your own mind. He that is slow to believe in anything and everything is of great understanding, for belief in one false principle is the beginning of all unwisdom. Here we see blue peeking through, asking you to be a critical thinker, one who puts rational thought above all else. Satanists believe that you should question all institutions that claim to hold the truth, and yes, that even means Satanism and its founder. Satanism states that all gods and belief systems are constructs of humans, used to give agency to the unknown. Since the Satanist is aware of this, Satan is instead used as a figurehead symbolically, as humans need symbolism to represent their ideas and wrap their rituals around. Why not really be honest? And if you're going to create a god in your image, why not create a god as yourself? So, in this way, Satan is here to represent the keeper of humanity's true self. It's giving critical and magical thinking a representation in our own mind. And then in doing the rituals in Satan's name, you must understand that it is the person doing the ritual that is putting their will and ideas forward. Here we see the emergence of blue, as it is always one to see rational and constructive thought as a great tool for understanding and improving oneself. In the vein of rational thought, the Satanist does not believe in things like hope or prayer, because outside of their minor rituals, they promote standing to the side and hoping for a higher power to grant you what you want. Lavey realized that man needs rituals and symbolism to externalize their intentions, and so a Satanist puts forth rituals to actualize what they desire, then proceeds to act in a manner that facilitates that desire, holding strong to things like ambition and self-realization. I've talked a lot in the past about how blue-black is the purest form of ambition, as it is the perfection of self and the grasping at the highest form one can take themselves, and I do believe it fits within Satanism perfectly. In a lot of ways, the act of hope versus magical action is what Lavey saw as the major difference between right and left-hand path magic, or white and black magic as it's often called. So, what about magic, and how can it sit in a religion of critical thinking? Of course, it seems odd that a belief system that is aware of its own creation would even speak of things such as magic. This, of course, seems like a contradiction, but there is a reason for it, and it is one that is derived from the ancient side of our brains. To answer this question, though, we'll have to look at it in two different ways. One comes from the great unknown. We do not know everything, and so Lavey states that magic is merely science that has not yet been discovered. Magic is never totally scientifically explainable, but science has always been, at one time or another, considered magic. If a Satanist does a ritual to gain wealth and then actualizes that ritual after thorough effort, did the spell not work? Left-hand magic is more than just talismans and Baphomet heads. It is the understanding that reality is malleable and can be shaped by our own will. You will always have to do your part when it comes to magic, one being the ritual itself and the other being the follow-through, and what's more is that it's not magic for those too afraid to announce what they really want from this life. This sort of magic is used to actualize our own desires, which is something that we could easily see reflected in blue-black. It's the pursuit of magical thought put into magical action, all in an effort to get the most out of our lives. The other way to answer this question comes from our ancestors. It's why every faith has its own rituals, and why magic is more real than we give credit to. Ever since the dawn of humanity, we have assigned actions to our desires, even if we never truly understand its effects. Even someone who does not believe in magic, and yet is successful, has their own rituals. Actions, when pieced together, pull what we want out of the universe and bring it to ourselves. To this end, Satanism is full of ritual, and embraces this side of itself. Sure, some of it is just there for show, for fun, and to add mysterious aspects to it, but much of it has to be taken very seriously, and to become an extension of what a Satanist is. Like I said, Lavey believed that humans need this sort of thing. It's so ingrained in our DNA, and goes back all the way to ancient man.
Well, when I was a teenager, I was interested in the occult. And the occult in those days meant you got dream books, and you got books on fortune telling and all that sort of thing. And the closest thing there was to anything about calling up spirits or demons and that sort of thing was a lot of gobbledygook where you stood around in a circle and you used the protective names of Jehovah and Jesus and all that. And I tried it. Oh, Lord knows I tried it, but it didn't work. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to call up any demons, if I'm going to get any magical power, if I'm going to get anything going my way, I better get on the side of those guys instead of protecting myself from them.
So now that we've pieced together what Lavey's Satanism is, what are we left with? At its core, Satanism is the philosophy of the self, of our own desires and needs. It accepts every aspect of who we are, no matter how much society tells you you're wrong. The Satanist is the person who has emotional clarity and a willingness to follow through on what they desire. To this end, we can safely say that red and black are a huge part of Satanism and represent being true to yourself and allowing yourself to feel no shame for the person you are. On the other side of it, the Satanist is a person who looks for self-improvement at all times and accepts the purity of its ambition. This is shown perfectly in the combination of blue-black, who sees self-perfection as one of the highest orders of achievement. Finally comes the magical thinking and magical action. This is the side of the Satanist that applies ritual to its beliefs to bring it forward and make it ever more real. A side of ourselves that harkens back to our ancestors and realizes that there is some form of magic out there, even if that magic is no more than just bringing our desires into reality through action. In the end, we can see that Satanism is the combination of blue, black, red, centered heavily on black. This combination is often called Grixis, and I think it fits perfectly. To some, Grixis can seem like the evil combination, but here we see it used in a positive way. And after all, isn't evil spelled backwards just live? Well, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end on this one. It's been on my mind for a while now, and I hope you really enjoyed it, as it was sort of a passion project of mine. I think this video opens the door to covering more philosophies in the future and matching them up with the colors, so be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Well, it's been fun, friends. With that, I'll catch you in the multiverse. Bye.